And they also plan to say, we have no evidence of cyber manipulation of election infrastructure intended to alter results. Here's the bottom line. What people need to know is Obama's intel community was about to give Obama a presidential daily brief that totally dismissed, downplayed, poo-pooed, choose your word, the notion that Russia had meaningfully interfered in the 2016 presidential election.
Fox News alert, the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, releasing a bombshell report today that shows a conspiracy by a sitting president, Barack Obama, and his intel agencies to sabotage the president-elect, Donald Trump, brainwash the electorate, and undermine the...
He was once the embodiment of hope, an untouchable figure bathed in the glow of admiration. But now, beyond the carefully rehearsed speeches and the flawless public facade, something far more unsettling lurks in the shadows. As Megyn Kelly and Jesse Waters pull at the loose threads, the pristine tapestry begins to fray, revealing stains long hidden from view. The Netflix sheen dims, the podcast pearls of wisdom turn brittle, and the contradictions roar louder than the thunderous applause ever did. This isn't a gentle jab, it's a reckoning. The mask is slipping, piece by piece, and what lies beneath has the power to shatter everything you thought you knew.
Of January 17 was set to downplay Russian interference in the 2016 election. And then after a meeting with Obama and the top intelligence community officials, or at Obama's direction at least, the intelligence community did a complete 180 and played up Russia.
Democrats spent the last 2 decades calling men toxic and shipping their jobs overseas, and now they're asking, where did all the men go? Obama's trying to save the party he destroyed, so he's on a manhunt. But there's one problem. The brothers don't listen to him anymore, so he's trying to transition boys into girls. Barack's got his own rules for men, but these are the rules that made men leave the party in the...
Barack Obama once commanded a stage with such effortless charm. His words glided smoother than silk on glass, making butter seem rough by comparison. But lately, the aura has faded. The man who once embodied the weight of history now feels more like that overzealous classmate at a reunion, endlessly replaying the same highlight reel. The audience has thinned, the applause replaced by polite glances at the exit. It's as if he peaked on prom night and never left the gymnasium. Still, swaying to a song that stopped playing years ago, only now, the disco ball's gone dark, and the janitor's jingling his keys at the door.
Michelle's outshining him. She's a big Netflix star, best-selling author. Now she's a fruit juice tycoon. And he's just left starved for attention. Just the way Michelle likes it.
We had your wife Michelle on the show, and she had mentioned that for about 10 years of the marriage, she really didn't like you.
Oh, man.
So asking for a friend, how do you get back in good graces? Again, for a friend. You got a pen, so I take notes.
Let me just say this. It sure helps to be out of the White House. And to have a little more...
Megyn Kelly didn't even bother with a warm-up act. Her expression alone could have been a monologue. The moment Obama's latest Russia collusion whisper made its way into the headlines, she rolled her eyes so hard they nearly orbited the room. He's not drowning just yet, but you can almost hear the water heater kicking in. The man who once stood as a polished emblem of hope and change now feels slippery, evasive, like someone answering every question with a riddle. Jesse Waters leaned in with the intensity of a TV detective mid-season, mentally mapping strings and pins across an invisible corkboard. His face said it all, not surprise, but the weary disbelief of watching a once revered figure swan dive off the steep ledge of credibility.
Let's go back to December of 2016. Barack Obama's president, but Trump has won and is going to be taking over as president in January. And they planned, the intel officials under Barack Obama planned, a lot of this is from Racket News, which everybody should read directly, Matt's group. Intel officials planned a December 9th, 2016 presidential daily brief, which is always from the intel community for the president, letting him know what's happening in the world. They planned a PDB that would say foreign adversaries, quoting here, foreign adversaries did not use cyber attacks on election infrastructure to alter the U.S. president.
Let's not kid ourselves, the once unshakable Obama mystique is starting to fracture, splintering like a pane of glass left too long in the sun. This is the man who practically copyrighted the art of cool, yet lately, he's become the human equivalent of a glitchy Spotify playlist, skipping, looping the same tracks, and insisting on a comeback nobody queued up. He swept into Martha's Vineyard as if still descending the steps of Air Force One, but the landing felt different this time. Now, the headlines are less about legacy and more about awkward press moments, oddly timed political endorsements, and podcast sound bites so polished they feel AI-generated, like chat-gapped force-fed old campaign speeches and told to sound inspirational.
There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't.
Gabbard got her hands on a House intel report that's been locked away in a...
And Megyn, she didn't so much ease into it as charge-forward precision of a surgeon, temperament of someone on day 3 without caffeine. Watching her dismantle Obama's post-presidency brand was like seeing a designer balloon meet a rusty fork, beautifully cruel, oddly satisfying. With an elegance that cut sharper than most outrage, she headed straight for the hypocrisy buffet, open 24/7, always freshly stocked with rules for thee, but not for me, from his apocalyptic climate warnings delivered between luxury island getaways to lofty sermons on democracy while clinking glasses with Silicon Valley titans. The contradictions weren't just visible, they were practically dripping from the collar of his tailored suit.
To be clear, earlier this week, I actually wrote this down. I rarely write down what I'm going to say, but I just didn't want to forget it because there's so many moving parts. We learned that intelligence community assessment of January 17 was set to downplay Russian interference in the 16 election. And then after a meeting with Obama and the top intelligence community officials, or at Obama's direction at least, the intelligence community did a complete 180 and played up Russian interference instead of...
Then there was Jesse O. Jesse swooping in like a hawk catching sight of a self-righteous ex-president standing alone in a wide open field of contradictions. He didn't hesitate. No dramatic pause, no deep breath, just a steady gaze and a well-worn dossier of Obama's greatest hits tucked under his arm. Remember the time he graciously accepted the Nobel Peace Prize while greenlighting drone strikes as if they were side quests in a video game? Jesse wasn't letting that one drift into the memory hole. In his telling, the Nobel Committee could have saved time and simply handed over a joystick and a best multiplayer killstreak trophy. And yet, perhaps the richest irony is Obama's ongoing performance as an ordinary citizen, the man of the people. If your idea of the people includes giving keynote speeches for $100,000 a pop, signing Netflix contracts that could rival the GDP of small nations, and hosting birthday parties that make royal weddings look like Biob potlucks, Megyn nearly broke into laughter mid-segment. She didn't need to speak. Her smirk alone said, "Nothing screams humble quite like a guest list that could tank the NASDAQ if they all left early. And let's not pretend the ghosts of 2016 don't haunt the background. Mention that year and you can practically hear the squeal of PR gears grinding into overdrive. The very name is garlic to the credibility vampire that is modern political elitism. Yet here's the thing, Megyn and Jesse are not the type to let old scandals fade quietly into the archives. They're the ones who stroll into a flickering bonfire carrying both a marshmallow stick and a full can of gasoline.
Michelle didn't like Barack for 10 years? Well, join the club. We didn't like him for 8. So Michelle hated being first lady, always in the shadow of the president. But now she's in charge and she's only letting Obama out of the house to do one thing, cry about Fox.
What about this country keeps you up at night?
The thing that I'm most worried about is the degree to which we now have a divided conversation in part.
The roast didn't stop at the so-called treasonous whispers of 2016. That was merely the amuse-bouche. What followed was a 10-course feast of irony, arrogance, and inconvenient truths. And on the menu, Obama's carefully polished legacy, buffed so often it's starting to look like an antique trophy, impressive from afar. But up close, the scratches tell another story. Megyn Kelly dove straight into healthcare, reminding viewers how his administration's crown jewel Obamacare was sold as a medical revolution but often felt like a nationwide migraine. The promise was clarity and care. The reality was millions squinting at bronze, silver, and gold plans like contestants on a cruel game show. Obama still speaks of it as if it cured the system. Jesse's take? It was like handing someone a Band-Aid and sending them a bill for open-heart surgery. Then came the border policies, because those infamous cages didn't magically appear in 2017. Their blueprint had Obama-era ink all over it. Jesse made sure that memo wasn't misplaced. And while Megyn pointed out, with surgical calm, how the press acted less like watchdogs and more like a personal PR squad, the list of untouched scandals unfurled fast and furious. IRS targeting Benghazi. These weren't hiccups. They were blaring sirens. Yet somehow, each one slid off him like Teflon, while lesser politicians were incinerated for far less. Obama, meanwhile, was busy slow jamming the news with late-night hosts, flashing that signature grin as the questions piled up unanswered.
You see the post he put out to celebrate her birthday?
Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
her birthday or their anniversary?
Yeah,
He chose the least attractive photo of her that's ever been released. I mean, this is
It's
just
not.
wrong. Michelle
Yeah,
Obama
he
can look
did it
very
good.
nice in a photograph. This ain't it. She's got
Yeah,
the
right.
kerchief on her head. They're about 20 feet apart in this intimate dinner. And he looks great. This is classic, right? Like, he's like,
Yeah.
this is a great picture. He's got the 1,000-watt smile.
And then there's his relentless obsession with staying relevant, the Netflix docuseries, the carefully curated Spotify playlists, the endless self-referential interviews. It's as if he skimmed one think piece on millennials and decided the real goal of a former president wasn't statesmanship, but personal branding. Jesse didn't even need a punchline. The mental image of Obama in aviators, leaning into a podcast mic to dispense life advice, carried enough comedy to fuel 3 segments. It's hard to take lectures on income inequality from a man whose tailored suits cost more than a semester of in-state tuition. Maybe he believes it's inspirational. Maybe he still sees himself as the story's protagonist. But to most, it's starting to feel like tired fan service, a rerun of a show that ended seasons ago, and who could forget that infamous portrait? Unveiling, there he stood, shoulder to shoulder with a larger-than-life version of himself, looking every bit the man impressed with his own reflection. Jesse resurrected that moment like a sitcom callback because only Obama could turn what should have been a dignified government ceremony into a full-blown lifestyle brand promo. That wasn't patriotism on display. That was performance art, served with a generous helping of ego salad.
Hot air from Barack because he couldn't care less about the environment. This weekend, the former president was in LA grabbing a bite to eat with his daughters, and obviously at a very trendy restaurant. And while the Obamas dined on $20 sushi rolls, their SUV sat idling outside, just spewing pollution into the air, idling for hours. Check out the video from the Daily Mail showing Barry just casually strolling out of the restaurant, not a care in the world, before jumping into the SUV. What happened? I thought Barry loved the environment. That doesn't look like a guy who cares about his footprint too much. And it certainly doesn't look like the guy.
Even his speeches now feel like the political equivalent of syndication, always smooth, always polished, but still just reruns. The delivery remains elegant, no question, but listen closely and you'll notice it's the same reheated leftovers. Hope, change, unity. By now, you could program an Obama speech generator, hit shuffle, and produce something TED Talk ready on the spot. Megyn joked they should package them as fortune cookies sold at overpriced coastal cafes, each one containing a perfectly vague, Instagram-worthy call to action that sounds profound, until you realize it says absolutely nothing. Jesse just smirked, likening Obama's role in current politics to someone painstakingly trying to update their MySpace page into 0-5 outdated. Unnecessary, and more than a little painful to watch. And then came the foreign policy record. Jesse rolled through a list of nations that experienced the Obama diplomacy special, a cocktail of lofty speeches, red lines drawn in invisible ink, and drone strikes with side effects rivaling those in a bad pharmaceutical commercial. By the end, he quipped that the Nobel Peace Prize Committee must still be quietly debating whether it's possible to request a refund, or at least exchange it for something more fitting like a frequent flyer card to the Situation Room.
He is alone at the Trump inauguration, which really was, it was stark. All these former presidents came in with their wives, and then there he was.
It was jarring.
All alone. It was jarring, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, just the spectacle of it all.
Got to spend a minute on the Obamas, because there seems to be some momentum picking up in the rumor mill about their marriage. All right, I'm going to bring you what I know.
Megyn laughed even harder when she landed on the delicious irony of Obama warning the world about misinformation, while flanked by Silicon Valley billionaires who could buy and sell entire news empires the way kids swap baseball cards. It was the rhetorical equivalent of Dracula giving a TED Talk on blood pressure. Here was a man cautioning against echo chambers while speaking from inside a hermetically sealed, data-curated luxury bubble. And naturally, Obama's current media presence is so meticulously polished you'd think it was run through a high-end PR car wash. There are no rough edges, no real confrontations, just smiling selfies, tastefully staged tarmac strolls, and softly lit interviews. Jesse quipped that Volume 3 of his public life might just be his Spotify playlists with mood annotations. Track 5, Play While Drone Striking Yemen, felt conflicted, but chill vibes overall. Megyn closed her segment with a smirk, pointing out that Obama might be the only former president who can make aloofness look like a marketable virtue. But pull back the curtain, and you don't find a philosopher-statesman. You find a celebrity with a script, a master of appearing profound while delivering recycled slogans, of nodding solemnly while saying almost nothing, and of aging gracefully, while some of his decisions spoil like yogurt left out in the sun. Meanwhile, the Obamagate whisper grows louder.
All right, let's see if maybe this is a way America can hear me at this moment. Go back to that day 10 years ago. What I think binds it together, all these different strands, case upholding healthcare, a case declaring same-sex marriage part of our constitutional protections, of mourning. I think what pulls it all together is that no one person did any of that.
So he's sitting around on a June Thursday thinking about himself. And
people aren't stupid, and Megyn and Jesse certainly aren't either. While the mainstream treats the subject like Voldemort in a press release never named, always tiptoed around, the whispers still slip through the cracks. The connections, the flights, the names. No one struck a match yet, but the air is thick with the scent of gasoline. Sure, Obama still has a loyal fan base. He can still pack theaters with self-help light monologues and podcast episodes scored with carefully selected jazz tracks. But while he's busy crafting his next think piece or queuing up another Spotify song to telegraph his depth, the world keeps remembering the inconvenient truths he hoped would stay buried under layers of eloquence. The presidential pedestal he once commanded has been repurposed, a maintenance platform for polishing a legacy that now comes with flashbacks to speeches that have aged like milk left out in August heat. The halo tilts, the script phrase, and the myth of flawless leadership is now riddled with holes, poked by the very voices that once shouted his praise. Megyn and Jesse didn't just roast the man, they peeled back the velvet curtain on the entire act. And what stood there wasn't a monument to statesmanship. It was a monument-themed merchandise rack, waiting for one last spotlight before the stage lights fade on the Obama encore.